Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a topic that, let's be honest, affects just about all of us. That often very blurry line between your personal privacy and what your employer can see.
So let me just ask you this straight up. Do you feel like what you do on your work computer is your own private business? It's a super common way to feel, but the reality? It's way more complicated. Those lines are definitely not as clear-cut as you might think.
To really get our heads around privacy in the workplace, we've actually got to take a step back and look at the whole idea of privacy itself. I mean, where does this right even come from?
At its absolute core, privacy is pretty simple. It's the right to be left alone, The right to control what you share about yourself without having the whole world peeking over your shoulder. And that covers everything from your personal space to your private records.
And believe it or not, this is not some newfangled internet age idea. We're talking way back in 1890, as you can see from this quote. People were already getting worried that new tech, things like cameras and telephones, could invade this basic right.
And that idea, well, it caught on, big time. Fast forward to 1948, and the United Nations officially recognizes privacy as a fundamental human right. Then, in a huge case in 1965, Griswold versus Connecticut, the U.S. Supreme Court made it clear that privacy is an implied right within the Constitution.
Okay, so we have this big, broad right to privacy. But the moment you walk through the office doors or log on to the company network, that right gets a lot smaller. It's almost like you make an invisible bargain. Let's dig into how that actually works.
So, how do courts figure this stuff out? They use this really interesting two-part test. First, they ask, did you personally believe what you were doing was private? And then comes part two, the bigger question. Is that expectation something that society as a whole would say is reasonable? And you have to have a yes to both. This is a perfect way to think about it. A confidential call with your doctor from your home? Yeah, of course. Everyone would agree that's private. But what if you have that exact same conversation on speakerphone while you're on a crowded public bus? Suddenly, that expectation of privacy just isn't reasonable anymore.
And this brings us right back to the office. The general rule of thumb is, if you're using company equipment, their computer, their phone, their servers, your employer can probably monitor it. A lot of us even sign waivers that say so when we start a new job. The big exception? Places where privacy is a given, like bathrooms or locker rooms.
Now, it's not a complete free-for-all. Companies don't just get to do whatever they want. They have some very serious legal duties to protect certain kinds of information. Let's look at the rules that are supposed to be our data protectors.
A huge one you probably heard of is HIPAA. This law basically forces any organization that deals with your health information to put up multiple walls of security. We're talking tech safeguards, physical locks, and company policies, all to keep that data safe and sound.
And if you look globally, Europe's GDPR is kind of the gold standard. It sets a really high bar, forcing any company that handles data from Europeans to follow these strict principles, like only collecting the data they absolutely need and making sure it's kept secure.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about the new frontier. Because, let's be real, the threats to our privacy are evolving faster than ever thanks to modern tech, hackers, and just the sheer amount of data out there.
I mean, just try to wrap your head around this number. 4.1 billion. That's billion with a B. That's how many documents were compromised in just the first 6 months of 2019. The scale of the problem is just staggering.
But here's the part that might surprise you. What do you think causes most of these breaches? Sophisticated hackers in dark rooms? Nope. The biggest culprit, by a long shot, is simple human error. A staggering 60% of breaches happen because somebody just made a mistake. And all this is getting even more complicated with new tech like biometrics. Using your fingerprint or your face to clock in and out of work. That's becoming more and more common, and it's raising all these new questions about who owns that deeply personal data. So, with all these risks swirling around, what's the game plan? How do we keep our information safe? Let's pivot and look at the cybersecurity playbook that every business should be using.
A really fundamental concept in all of cybersecurity is what's known as the CIA security principle. And no, not that CIA. It's a really simple but powerful way to think about security, and it stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
So let's break that down. Confidentiality is pretty straightforward. It means keeping information secret from people who shouldn't see it. Integrity is all about making sure that data is accurate and hasn't been tampered with. And availability? Well, that just means the right people can actually get to the data when they need it. So when you put it all together, any solid cybersecurity program has to tick these boxes. It needs to protect sensitive info, be ready for potential threats, have solid backups, and, this is a big one, prevent anyone from getting unauthorized access that could lead to real harm like fraud.
At the end of the day, the single most important thing to remember is this. For businesses, protecting data isn't just a good idea or good practice. It's a legal and ethical requirement. Being proactive is not optional.
And all of this leaves us with one final big question to think about. In our world of constant connection, where our jobs, homes, and devices are all intertwined, what does the future of privacy even look like? That's something we're all going to have to figure out. Thanks for joining me.